read you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Glover.
Good morning.
Glover.
All right.
All right.
How you been, Patrick?
How you been, Patrick?
I've been good. How have you been?
I've been
Got
good.
through the summer good?
I've been good.
Good. Good.
Beautiful weather.
Beautiful weather.
Oh, my Lord. Are we blessed or what?
Very fortunate.
Very fortunate.
So it's about that time, man.
So it's about that time, man.
We're coming up about 9 months out. It's the big day for the elections in Maryland.
So is it
to
to be expected that this will be the most expensive election ever?
I would think so. I mean, I don't know the specific numbers per se. I know a lot of money was spent in 14, 18, but it's just the natural progression of things, Donnie. It's called inflation. Everything's going up. And, not only at the statewide level, but more at the local levels. County executive races last time were the most expensive ever. I assume that they might even be more expensive this time, so yes, I think this will be the most expensive election cycle in the history of Maryland.
And you've been doing polls for what?
30 years?
Yeah, 35 years since the mid 80s.
What's been the biggest surprise?
Well, I mean, over the years, there have been just example after example of incumbents that no one thought would losing. Fortunate or unfortunately, I've been involved in many of them, and many times on the right side, few times on the wrong side. And then we had the example nationwide, in 2016, where no one thought Donald Trump was going to win. So politics is full of many things. Surprises are one.
I knew he was going to win.
Well, you are a smart man.
This is America.
We've never dealt with our original sin.
That is true. I know I have not dealt with my original sin. So
8 years of Obama prompted many groups to like, oh hell no.
Well, I think that, and I think that our system of government over the past 2-3 decades has invited. Has allowed corruption into the room, and it kind of gets worse and worse. And the bottom line, Donnie, you and I are of like mind. We don't like being conned. We don't like hearing a bunch of BS. And if you listen to politicians these days of all stripes, that's all you hear: empty words, garbage. And the fact that we have an omnipresent system of information dissemination between 10,000 cable channels, omnipresent social media, the opportunity to be conned and lied to is many. And so, that's as I get into the, I guess, sunset of my career, I still love politics. I still love campaigns and elections, but I'm getting awful weary of being lied to.
Yeah, I've kind of given up.
Yeah, hey, what does the Lord say? Never give up, and I will never give up. But that's more faith than it is belief at this point.
I've given up on politics.
Yep, I hear you.
I don't know that we can produce good leaders anymore.
No, Donnie. 5 years ago, I would have disagreed. I'm starting to think the same thing. The system just doesn't allow for it. So
You know, this lady Tamara Brown,
This lady Tamara Brown
on this network, she's pretty much the leader
she's pretty much the leader
of our online network, and she has a lot of faith.
She has a lot of faith.
well, God bless her, and that's what I try to maintain too. So, and there's, as we get a little bit older, Donnie, I go back to hearing something, I don't know, many years ago, and the quote was something, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm messing the quote up, but our system is doomed. This new generation is going to destroy us. And that quote was by Socrates 2,500 years ago. So I think Tamara is, I think she's more on it than perhaps I am. There are still good people out there, and so I think we'll be fine.
The system is corrupt.
The system is corrupt.
Exactly.
So when I asked you,
surprising,
I figured you would talk about the first governor in 36 years.
I'm sorry, Donnie. I didn't hear that.
When I spoke with you about surprises, like in the past 30 years,
Right.
I figured you would say early.
Well, and we'll go back. We're going back, 19 years now. It was 2002. And I remember doing a poll right after the start of summer. So it was right around 4th of July. And no polling had really been done. And I think Ehrlich got into the race in like January of that year. Townsend was already, going to be the nominee. And I did a poll that essentially at that point, so at this point, we're like 6 months out from the general. And I had essentially dead even. And so by the time the election rolled around that year, it was a shock in one way, but that was one of those elections where, people were surprised, but they shouldn't have been. So Hogan the same way in 14. Everyone assumed that, Anthony was just going to kind of progress to that next logical step. And a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. So
what does that say about
the
value of a lieutenant governor?
Well, historically, lieutenant governors, vice presidents in this country, that's not necessarily the path to success. And a lot of it has to do with the nature of this country and the nature of human beings. We go through something for 8 years, we get tired of it, and we want something different. I mean, George Bush, when he got elected president in 1988, when Vice President George Bush got elected president in 1988, that was the first time that had happened in well over 100 years. So vice presidents, lieutenant governors, a lieutenant governor in Maryland, now lieutenant governors have only been around for about 50 years, has never ascended to the governorship. So, and it's certainly not going to happen this year with the lieutenant governor not running. So, yeah.
He's a smart man.
He's
He's a very smart man.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah. Figures don't lie. Liars figure. So.
But your business is around.
No.
Exactly. But my business is around people, Donnie. And that's what a lot of people lose sight. You see these knucklehead pollsters get on, and they've got a math background. I mean, that's their thing. So you see him, you look at him, and you say, that's a goofy bastard. I apologize for that. And why? Because to think, man, when I'm working on the actual component of executing my poll, I almost go into a different frame of mind because mathematically I've got to think in those terms. But then once that's through, you got to get out of that. You got to get back to being a human being. In politics, yes, polling is about numbers. Yes, it's about the data, blah, blah, blah. Politics at the end of the day is like anything else. It's about human beings. It's about interaction. It's about building networks and friendships. And so polling is an art and a science. It's much more of an art than many would have you believe.
I was told years ago that the media is the fourth estate.
Right.
What role does media play today?
Well, I think that's one of the problems in this country, Donnie, is it is the fourth estate. You've got three branches of government, and the whole point of the media is to kind of be the watchdog and to call BS and to say, hey, we're being conned, we're being lied to by our government. And then that's sort of the check. They're part of the checks and balances of this country. And I just get the sense, and it's never been perfect, throughout the 19th century, from the founding of this country, from the election of George Washington in 1788, through, I'd say, the end of the 19th century, through the 1896 election between William McKinley and William Jennings Bryan, there was in this country fundamentally a party press. They didn't care about the truth. They didn't care about objectivity or neutrality. They cared about pushing the agenda of their particular party. So you had the Democrats in their party press and the Republicans in their party press. And all of a sudden, it kind of dawned on people, hey, there's a market out there for a more objective, truth-seeking media. And it kind of moved in that direction. Again, never perfect. And then I feel like, Donnie, that in many ways, we are moving back to what we had in the 19th century, a party press. You've got the media of the left and the media of the right. And it just seems like few are pursuing that sort of objective understanding of reality.
What media looked at Maryland elections? The Post, the Sun, Fox.
I would say out of those choices, I mean, I'd say out of the print media, things like Maryland Matters and Maryland Reporter, but they've ascended greatly. And they're nothing but a center, a collection center, sort of, and they're doing a lot of with the Post stories and the Sun stories. But and I think social media. I think I remember in 2004 when Howard Dean ran for president, and his guy Joe Trippi, really tapped into the social media. Well, that was 2004 when it was useful, but today it's unbelievable. So I would say television's still important, but with social media, you can accomplish the same things you can with television, which you can show that visual. I think the print media, as you and I grew up with, is morphing and evolving into something totally different from what we understood it to be. And it's all competitive. And at the bottom, at the end of the day, the bottom line for any organization is the bottom line. They want to make money. They want to get clicks. They want to get eyeballs.
So look, when Hogan came in, what was that? 14?
14.
He had well over 250,000 followers on his Facebook page.
On his social media page.
It wasn't long before. He might have had 300,000 or 400,000 That's more than the local media.
More than the local media,
including the Sun.
Yeah.
including the Sun.
And so I try to
That was 7
explain that.
years
So
ago.
I try to explain that to newcomers that he didn't just jump in.
The race.
He prepared. I'm talking about change Maryland.
Exactly. And he really was the first to, in a very organized and successful way, utilize social media. And we saw what happened.
But he couldn't wait till 2014.
Right. He started, I don't know when he started. I remember doing a poll in 2011 for, private client, and it was tapping into that sort of idea. So yeah, this has been building for quite a while.
And I say that because a lot of people running like John King. He's never run before.
You mean the guy from Montgomery County, the former
Yeah.
Obama official?
Sure.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
You got Wes Moore, you got Mike Rosenbaum, you got all these people. You got John Barron. I mean, what are there, 9 or 10? And in any one of them, I mean, you got the front runners, Rashern and Francho. But then on their heels, you got Tom Perez, former head of the DNC. And so it's, I mean, anybody that pretends to know precisely how this thing is going to turn out next June is kidding you or kidding themselves. I mean, the front runners are no doubt Rashern Baker and Peter Francho. Where does it go the next 9 months? And that's what I'm going to be watching with fascination.
When the poll said that Rashern was second, how many Baltimore voters?
What poll showing Rashern second?
Your poll from last year.
No, my poll that I did in the end of the spring, beginning of the summer, had Rashern at 22 and Francho was in second at 18.
Interesting, because I'm not hearing his name. Rashern.
Yeah.
But he did get what, 9 of 11? He had one last time.
Yeah, he got 30%, I think, in 18.
But he had 9. Now he has 9. Now he has 9 council members.
Yeah, I saw that. The 9 council members in Prince George's went ahead and backed him. And so he's trying to, I guess, put together that kind of coalition, kind of try. The whole strategy is sort of a geographic one where, you've got the Washington suburbs that account for about 40 to 45% of the vote. You got the Baltimore suburbs, including the city, which account for about 40 to 45%. And then you've got sort of the rest of the state, the Western Maryland, Eastern Shore, and that's about 10 to 15% of the vote. So, this thing is going to be one sort of in the metropolitan areas, and who can put together the biggest, broadest coalition. And, last time Jealous won it with 40%. I think that this time, it might take even less than that to win the primary.
We haven't seen Jealous since.
No, I don't know what he's doing. I haven't heard a thing.
He's sending editorials for me to talk with him. But we haven't seen him.
Well, I guess
tomorrow.
No, and that was one of the issues that ultimately I think he dealt with when he went up against Hogan. He didn't have any real roots in the state, and he was the head of the NAACP, but again, as we talked about earlier, at the end of the day, politics is about human relationships. And, if you've lived somewhere your whole life, you probably have developed more relationships than someone who hasn't. And all the TV and all the social media and all the advertising in the world can't change that fact.
Now, listen, when I quoted you last week, you spoke about the significance
television ad
through the winter.
through the winter.
That's going to be important.
I'm sorry.
That's going to be important.
What's that? I'm sorry. The what?
When I quoted you last week,
you
said television ads would be significant through the winter month.
Yeah, well, the thing about television is, again, it gets you right in the room with them. It makes you see, it allows you to interact with people, not at a level as good as actually being in the room with them and talking to them, but it's an effective medium. But it's now competing with many more forms of communication, not the least of which is social media. And the audience that you're reaching is smaller than it used to be. And the cost is still very prohibitive. So, you got to get kind of creative. A candidate needs to figure out ways to communicate with voters in creative ways that are effective and you can afford. So
I'm curious to see what black voters do.
Oh, that's going to be a key component. I mean, that's it. I mean, who's going to tap in? Who's going to tap in to that constituency, which, Donnie, blacks in a primary, in a Democratic primary in Maryland, I think may be the plurality. So in other words, and I'm going to throw out numbers that I think are pretty, I know they're pretty close because I've been doing this stuff for 30 years. About 45% of the electorate in a Democratic primary in Maryland is white. About 45% is black. And 10% are, other. I'm not so sure come election day, then when all the votes are counted, and it's hard to we don't register by race here. Some states do. In Louisiana, you register by race, but we don't here. But you can do exit polling and you get a sense of what's going on. I wouldn't be surprised if, when all is said and done after June 28, 2022, that a plurality of voters in the Democratic primary are black. Well, and what does that mean? That means if a candidate can tap into that constituency, that's a huge advantage.
So this is what I've found, Pat.
Who can do it?
That Rashawn is strong. And Wes is strong in Baltimore.
Well, exactly. And Rashawn has the advantage of having run before, having run the county of Prince George's for 2 terms, for 8 years, built up that relationships. He's got relationships in Montgomery. So if Rashawn can go in and build a coalition in the Washington Metro, which is Prince George's, Montgomery, and Charles, and come out of there with a solid lead and tap into some of the Baltimore region, I think it's a huge advantage. And I think, if you ask me right now who I thought was going to be the Democratic nominee on October 4th, 2021, I would say Rashawn Baker. And I see Tamara says Westmore won't win Washington Metro. And to be honest, I tend to agree with her. But, we'll see.
I'll tell you, a deciding factor could be the media. This is why.
Well, the media always. Yes.
Rashawn Baker has a Baltimore-based compadre. But not any compadre. Martin Tito Dollins O'Malley.
Right.
Won't work in Baltimore City.
What, try and transfer Martin O'Malley support to you?
To Rashawn Baker.
Yeah, no, I don't. Donnie, Martin O'Malley is like you and me. Our best days are behind us. We ain't what we once was. Maybe once we are what we used to be. What's the old saying? I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. Whatever. No, the world belongs to others, Donnie. It belongs to the youth.
Now that's an interesting point. You got to check that. I see your security alert.
Yeah, I want to go. Yes, I love that dog, but he's irritating me right now.
Well, at least they good. So what does Rashawn have to do to clean up his reputation in Greater Baltimore?
Well, I'm not sure it's cleaning it up. I think he's just got to go and reintroduce himself and try to tap into what's happening. And the world's changed in the last month. It's certainly changed in the last 4 years. Take what he did 4 years ago, build on it. Don't rely on any one individual, and try to. I think I don't want to misquote anybody. I think Talmadge Branch has endorsed Rashawn. So go in and talk to elected officials like that, and try to build a network, and most importantly, go talk to the voters of Baltimore. Don't rely on someone else to do your work for you. Now, do you rely, Donnie Glover, on someone else to do your show for you or anything else? No, you do it yourself, just like I do it myself.
Well, you mentioned Talmadge. He couldn't get that plane off in that congressional run.
No, I know, but it was up against a supersonic jet. Okay.
He's been in the game a long time.
Yes, sir. But I think fundamentally, as far as Rashawn,
go ahead.
Yeah, no. As far as Rashawn, I think what he's got to do, number one, he's got to shore up the Washington. I mean, he has got to build and take advantage of his base in the Washington suburbs, and then go to the other parts of the state and pull. I mean, if he can pull 20% of the vote out of the Baltimore region, calling the dogs, this election's over. So
we've been running into this attack. Still with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm seeing a lot of delays from you, but I can hear you. I'll be patient.
Okay, so let's shift gears. What about the Republicans? Kelly Schultz.
Well, I think Kelly Schultz is the natural sort of successor in the sense of, on paper, but I think she's going to have problems in a Republican primary. I mean, that delegate, Dan Cox, is going to go out there, and he's, my sense is that Kelly's going to want to have a nice, polite primary. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think Dan Cox is going to go in there and just kind of hard pound issues that are important to Republican primary voters. And, it's not going to be a dainty, genteel affair. So, at this point, I wouldn't hazard a guess, but, and then there's Michael Steele. Is he going to get in or not? At the end of the day, and this is a total guess, I have no inside information, I don't think he's going to get in. And
you're not alone, Patrick. So do you find that the Republicans understand the business of elections better.
The business of what?
Of elections.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I think the Democrats are pretty good at figuring out the business of elections. I probably actually give them an advantage.
Really? In the last mayoral election, it is my belief that Jack Young spent about $500,000 with some type of firm out of DC.
Right. Well, Jack Young was never going to win anyway. He never had a shot. I did a poll in the end of 2019, and he was done. So he was never even in the equation. And so I don't know why he spent $500,000 with that outfit out of Washington. I mean, that was an individual decision he made. And but yeah, so. And Tamara says, can you break down now having plus them? Yeah, I mean, 20 plus is right. There were 28, if I remember. So.
What's the impact? What happens when you have multiple candidates?
Well, at the end of the day, what happens is you kind of tend to, the media, for example, tends to kind of identify a manageable group, like the town halls. Before COVID hit, they were having these town halls all over the city, and at any particular one, there were probably 6 or 7. So you had Sheila, and you had Brandon, and you had TJ, and you had Mary, what's her name, and a couple of others. But typically, you had 28 people running for president at one time in the Democratic primary last year, and it quickly gets winnowed out, and it gets down after a couple of elections. Now that's a different system because you have election after election. But when you have 20 plus candidates running for mayor in Baltimore, what happens is the overwhelming majority of them get kind of dismissed and washed aside. The focus becomes on the half dozen or so that have a shot, and it goes from there. So, and the key is to try to break into that group, just like will be the key in the Democratic primary for governor this coming up year, which is how can I, kind of insinuate myself into that group that is getting attention paid to it. And then once attention is paid to me, I have a better opportunity to communicate my message. The more I can communicate my message, the more attention is paid to me. The more attention, the more I can communicate. And it's just it's a building block. It's like Legos, I guess, one upon the other. And you just keep going and moving. And do you have something that, resonates with voters?
Okay. Any final thoughts, Patrick? I want to cut it short.
Yeah, no, I understand. No, it is. And I appreciate the opportunity once again. And Donnie, anytime you want me to come back and see you, I just have so much fun.
Yes, sir. Nothing but love for you, big brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
We'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.